It all started with a text. Nothing special. Just a quick, casual message from my wife Claire saying, "Having a blast, wish you were here, red heart." She was on a girls' trip to Miami, something she and her friends had planned months in advance. A little getaway, some sun, some drinks, some much-needed fun. At least that's what I thought. I had encouraged her to go, told her to have fun, relax, enjoy herself. Trust was never something I questioned with Claire. We had been married for 6 years, built a life together, weathered storms together. Or so I believed. The next day the text slowed down. Nothing too strange at first, just shorter replies, longer gaps. Heading to the beach. Phone might die, talk later. Out dancing. I brushed it off. I didn't want to be the clingy husband blowing up her phone while she was out with friends. But deep down, something started to itch at the back of my mind. Something small but sharp. By the third day, the text stopped completely. I waited, told myself not to overreact. Maybe her phone really had died, maybe she just needed a break from everything, including me. It wasn't until the fourth day that the real panic set in. Not because she didn't call, but because I checked our bank account and found it nearly empty. Our savings account drained. Our emergency fund gone. Even the joint checking we used for everyday bills wiped clean. At first I thought it was a mistake. A glitch. A fraud alert waiting to happen. I called the bank, sat on hold, heart pounding, feeling like my whole body was humming with fear. When I finally got through, the woman on the other end of the line was painfully calm as she rattled off the transactions. Flight tickets. Hotel bookings. Cash withdrawals in Florida. Purchases at high-end boutiques and restaurants. Every charge traced back to Claire's card. Every dollar spent by my wife, who was supposed to be on a simple, low-key girls' trip. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. The front door stood open, the house too quiet, too still. Everything we had built together, every plan, every future dream felt like it was slipping through my fingers, turning to smoke. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I texted. No reply. I called her best friend, Sarah, who had supposedly gone on the trip with her. No answer. I called her sister, someone had to know something, but she hadn't heard from Claire either. Not since she landed. And that's when the awful, cold truth began to settle in. Claire hadn't gone on a girls' trip. Or if she had, it wasn't the kind I thought it was. She had disappeared. With everything. The money. The trust. The life we built. She had planned this. Planned it down to the last dollar, the last fake smile, the last casual kiss goodbye at the airport. It should have destroyed me. And maybe it would have, if she hadn't missed one massive detail. One thing she clearly forgot in all her careful scheming. A single account she didn't know existed. A savings account I had set up years ago when we first got married, a backup, hidden away, forgotten even by me until this moment of desperation. It wasn't huge. But it was enough. Enough to survive. Enough to fight back. And in that moment, sitting alone in our gutted house, staring at the blinking cursor of an empty text thread, a new feeling sparked to life inside me. Not panic. Not despair. Determination. She thought she had beaten me. She thought she could vanish into the sunset with our life savings and leave me broken. But she had no idea what she had just awakened. No idea at all. This wasn't over. Not even close. The house was too quiet. Every creak of the floorboards felt louder. Every clock tick felt like a hammer blow against my chest. I sat there for a long time after the call with the bank, staring at nothing. Not thinking. Not feeling. Just breathing. One breath at a time. In, out. Because if I stopped focusing on that, even for a second, I knew the weight of it all would crush me. She was gone. She had drained everything we built together. She had left me standing alone in a life we were supposed to be sharing. But she had missed the hidden account. That little forgotten piece of insurance I'd set up years ago when I first got my promotion at work, a separate savings account tucked away at a smaller credit union, separate from our joint accounts, meant to be just in case. Back then, just in case meant emergencies like hospital bills or job loss. I never imagined it would mean betrayal. I logged into the account, my fingers still shaking. 18,442.19 stared back at me. Not a fortune. But enough. Enough to survive. Enough to fight. Enough to start over if I had to. I sat back, exhaling slowly, and for the first time since the world had flipped upside down, I felt a sliver of control slide back into my hands. Claire thought she had taken everything. But she hadn't. Not even close. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, a legal pad in front of me, making lists. Plans. Ideas. Questions. Every ugly detail I could think of spilled onto those pages. Find out where she went. Secure what's left. Lock down my credit. Protect the house if she hadn't already filed to sell it out from under me. Learn everything I could about asset recovery and legal options. I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to rebuild. And when the dust settled, she would realize exactly what she had lost. By morning, the first thing I did was go to the credit union and pull half the hidden savings into cash. I wasn't stupid. Claire might have missed this account, but there was no telling what else she had access to: my emails, my paperwork, old passwords we used to share. Cash was safe. Cash couldn't be drained by a click of a button from some beach resort on the other side of the country. After that, I changed every password I had: banking, phone carrier, emails, even my Netflix account. I set up fraud alerts. I froze my credit. I made sure she couldn't ruin me any more than she already had. I filed a police report too. Not because I thought they would do anything, it wasn't technically a crime for a spouse to spend shared money, but because it created a paper trail. Something I could use later if I needed it. At every step I could hear her voice in my head, sweet and false: "You know you can trust me." And every step I took felt like another door slamming shut on the life we had built. But here's the thing about betrayal. Once you accept it, once you stop waiting for the person to come back and apologize or explain, it becomes fuel. It burns hot. It burns clean. And it pushes you forward faster than anything else ever could. By the second night, I had moved out of the house. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. That house was a graveyard now. Full of memories that weren't even real anymore. I packed up what mattered: my clothes, my tools, my grandfather's old watch, the handful of things that were truly mine, and left everything else behind. Let her have it if she wanted it so badly. Let her have the empty rooms, the dusty furniture, the broken promises. I wasn't going to fight over scraps. I wasn't going to drown in the past. I rented a small furnished apartment across town. Nothing fancy. Just a clean start. As I lay on the new bed that night, staring at the ceiling of a place that didn't hold a single memory of her, something deep inside me shifted. The old life was gone. She had taken it. And that was okay. Because I was building something new. Something better. Something she could never touch. And I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Once the dust settled, once the anger cooled just enough for me to think clearly, I realized something important. I didn't just want to move on. I wanted to know the truth. Where she went. What she did. Why she thought she could tear apart a life we built and vanish like it didn't matter. It wasn't about getting her back, God no. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about closing the chapter properly. No questions, no maybes, no loose ends. The first thing I did was go through everything she left behind. Which admittedly wasn't much. Claire had been smart. She'd wiped her side of the closet clean. Deleted most of her emails off the shared computer. Tossed out old letters and receipts. But people always leave breadcrumbs, even when they think they're being careful. I found the first one tucked inside a drawer she must have missed: an airline boarding pass. Miami to Las Vegas. Not Miami to home. My blood went cold. She hadn't been planning to come back at all. The whole girl's trip was a cover story. A setup. I sat there staring at the ticket for a long time, trying to piece it all together. Vegas. The city where people went to lose themselves. To get rich. To disappear. It didn't take a genius to figure out her plan. She had drained the accounts, used Miami as a smokescreen, and flown straight into a new life under the neon lights. It made me sick to my stomach, thinking about her laughing it up at some casino while I sat at home thinking she was dipping her toes in the ocean with her friends. But it also made me sharper. Vegas meant she was still in the system somewhere. Hotels, bank withdrawals, maybe even social media posts if she got sloppy enough. I started digging. At first, all I had to go on were her habits. Claire wasn't one to rough it. She liked the finer things, the nice resorts, the rooftop bars, the spa days. I combed through the websites of every high-end hotel on the Vegas Strip, looking for any public guest lists, any event photos, anything. Nothing at first. But then, buried deep in the social media feed of a luxury hotel's Instagram, there she was. Not front and center. Not posing for the camera. But caught in the background of a pool party shot. Laughing. Drinking. Arm around some guy I had never seen before. My stomach twisted again, but this time I didn't let it stop me. I zoomed in. Looked closer. Took screenshots. There was no doubt. It was her. Claire wasn't missing. Claire wasn't scared or lost or hurt. Claire was celebrating. Living it up on stolen money. My money. Our money. That's when the switch flipped inside me for good. No more second guessing. No more pity. She was gone. She had made her choice. And now it was time for me to make mine. I wasn't about to go flying out to Vegas and make a scene. That's not who I was. Not anymore. Instead, I called my lawyer. Told him everything. Showed him the bank records, the travel receipts, the photo evidence. He listened carefully, asked sharp questions, and then gave me the best advice I'd heard in weeks. Don't chase her, win. And winning didn't mean yelling at her. It didn't mean trying to haul her back to face me. It meant using the law, the system, the quiet power of patience and proof. While she was out there burning through the money like it would never run out, I was setting the groundwork. Filing claims. Freezing assets she thought she could still tap into. Preparing divorce papers so airtight they might as well have been written in stone. Every move she made now would only dig her hole deeper. And the best part, she didn't even know it yet. She thought she had vanished into a glittering new life. She thought she was free. But freedom built on lies is just a different kind of prison. One that was already closing around her, one mistake at a time. And me. I wasn't the broken man she had left behind. I wasn't the easy mark she thought she could fool. I was a man with a plan. And this time I was the one disappearing from the wreckage, from the heartbreak, from her entire twisted version of our life. For good. The thing nobody tells you about betrayal is that it doesn't kill you. It tries to. It hits you like a freight train and leaves you gasping for air, thinking you'll never stand up again. But if you do manage to get up, really get up, something inside you changes forever. You stop being the person who needs saving. You become the person who saves himself. That's exactly what I decided to do. Once the divorce process started rolling, once the paperwork was filed and the legal gears began to grind forward, I turned my focus inward. Not toward Claire. Not toward revenge. Toward myself. For the first time in years, I asked a brutal, simple question. Who do I want to be now? I realized I had spent so much of my marriage adjusting my life around Claire's needs, Claire's moods, Claire's dreams. Always moving my own wants to the back burner. Always making myself smaller to keep her bigger. Not anymore. The first thing I did was change my surroundings. The little furnished apartment had been good for hiding, for getting through the worst nights, but it wasn't where I wanted to build my future. I needed something that felt mine. Something clean, strong, new. I found a small house on the edge of town, nothing fancy, but it had good bones. An old craftsman-style place with a front porch and a big tree out back. It needed work, sure. Peeling paint, a roof that would need patching before winter. But it spoke to something deep inside me. A fixer-upper. Just like me. I bought it with the hidden savings Claire hadn't touched, a down payment no one could steal from under me, and moved in within a month. I didn't hire movers. Didn't call friends for help. Just packed what little I owned into the back of a borrowed pickup and did it myself. Every trip up the porch steps with a box in my arms felt like laying another stone at the foundation of my new life. And the work didn't stop there. I ripped out old carpeting, sanded down scratched up floors, painted walls late into the night, sweat pouring down my back, music blasting through the empty rooms. I filled the silence with effort, with progress. Some nights I'd sit on the porch with a beer, my hands raw and my muscles aching, and I would smile. Because every blister, every sore joint, was proof that I was moving forward. That I wasn't stuck in the life Claire abandoned. I was building something better, something she would never ever touch. Work followed the same pattern. I doubled down at my job, picking up extra projects, learning new skills. I signed up for certifications I had been putting off for years, too busy before with the endless demands of a marriage that had turned into a slow, quiet drain on my dreams. I didn't party. I didn't drown myself in rebound flings or mindless distractions. I rebuilt. Brick by brick. Decision by decision. Morning by morning. Some days were hard. Lonely. There's no pretending otherwise. I missed having someone to come home to. Someone to share small wins with. Someone to laugh with when the world didn't make sense. But every time that old ache tried to pull me under, I reminded myself. Better lonely than betrayed. Better alone than chained to someone who would rather run than fight. And little by little, the loneliness faded. Replaced by something sturdier. Self-respect. Pride. Not arrogance. Not the loud, desperate pride that needs to shout to be heard. A quieter kind. The kind that grows when you know you fought like hell to survive the worst thing that ever happened to you, and won. And somewhere in the middle of that rebuilding, I stopped thinking about Claire. Stopped wondering what she was doing. Stopped caring how much money she had left or which new strangers she was charming. She was just another ghost now. Another crack in the wall that had been patched over. Another scar that had faded into strength. The new house. The new life. The new me. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't payback. It was better. It was real. It was mine. And best of all, it was just the beginning. It happened on a Wednesday. Middle of the week. Middle of my life finally finding a new rhythm. I had just gotten home from work, a long day, a good day. The new house smelled like fresh paint and sawdust, the good kind of smell that reminds you progress is happening even when you're too tired to notice. I had kicked off my boots, cracked open a cold beer and settled onto the porch swing. The sky was that perfect shade of gold you only get for a few minutes at sunset. For once everything felt calm. And then a car pulled up. At first I didn't think anything of it. Neighbors had visitors all the time. Strangers pulling into the wrong driveway wasn't anything new out here. But then the door opened. And Claire stepped out. My heart didn't jump. My hands didn't shake. It was almost eerie how steady I felt. She looked different. Not the polished, manicured woman who used to fill our life with expensive handbags and salon appointments. She looked thinner. Tired. Worn out in a way no amount of makeup could hide. She stood there awkwardly, half shielding her eyes from the setting sun, not stepping any closer. Waiting. I didn't move from the swing. Didn't call out. Didn't make it easier for her. Finally she spoke. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. Hey, can we talk? For a long second I just looked at her. Let the silence stretch so thick you could almost hear it crackling between us. Part of me expected anger to rise up. Or sadness. Or maybe some twisted part of me would feel relief, like some sick reunion. But there was none of that. All I felt was distance. Like she was someone I had known in another life. A life I no longer lived in. I took a slow sip of my beer and finally said, about what? She shifted, her hands wringing together. The money, what I did, I messed up, she said, voice cracking a little. I made mistakes, I was stupid, I thought I could fix it before it all fell apart. I didn't say anything. Because there was nothing left to say. Because no excuse, no apology, no desperate plea could patch over what she had done. She looked around like she was seeing the house for the first time. Like she realized this wasn't the man she left behind. This wasn't the life she had run from. I lost everything, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The money's gone, the people I thought were my friends, they belied. I've been living out of my car for the last month. A small, almost detached part of me noted how poetic that was. She had tried to run toward freedom and ended up with nothing but an empty gas tank and broken promises. Still, I stayed silent. Finally, she stepped closer, just a few feet from the porch now. Tears brimming in her eyes. The same eyes that once convinced me to believe in forever. I miss you, she whispered. I miss what we had. I know I don't deserve it, but can we at least talk, start over? Start over. The words floated there in the warm evening air, desperate and hollow. I stared at her for a long time. At the wreckage she had become. At the wreckage she had left behind in me, which, by some miracle, I had rebuilt into something stronger. And I realized something very simple. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I just didn't care anymore. Not in the cruel, heartless way. But in the way you stop caring about a storm that passed a long time ago. The way you stop caring about a wound that's already healed. I finished my beer, stood up, and looked her square in the eye. I'm sorry you're hurting, I said, meaning it. But this, you and me, that's done, it's been done. Her face crumpled like she couldn't believe it. Like she thought coming back would be enough. Like the simple act of showing up would erase the damage. But real life doesn't work like that. Real betrayal leaves scars you can't just wish away. Without another word, I walked past her. Down the porch steps. Into the house that was truly mine now. And I closed the door behind me. Firm. Final. Free. After I closed the door that night, I stood in the hallway for a long time, listening. Not for her. Not for footsteps or crying or knocking. I listened to the silence. And for the first time since all of this began, since the texts stopped, since the money vanished, since my world cracked open, the silence didn't hurt. It felt clean. Solid. Whole. Claire was gone. For good this time. And it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a release. I made myself a cup of coffee even though it was late. Sat at the kitchen counter, staring at the simple, ordinary space that had somehow become the symbol of my survival. No chaos. No lies. No waiting for someone who wasn't ever coming home. Just me. My house. My life. As the coffee cooled in my hands, the memories started drifting in. Not the screaming fights, there weren't many of those. Ours had been a quieter failure. More slow poison than explosion. The little lies. The selfish choices disguised as misunderstandings. The way I used to feel small without even realizing it, adjusting and bending and compromising until I couldn't even recognize the man in the mirror anymore. It was so easy to miss it while it was happening. Because love covers everything at first. It forgives things it shouldn't. It blinds you to cracks that eventually split wide open. But looking back now, I saw it all clearly. I saw every tiny warning sign I ignored because it was easier to believe the version of her I loved rather than the one standing right in front of me. And strangely, I didn't feel regret. I didn't hate myself for not seeing it sooner. Because if I hadn't gone through all of that, if I hadn't been forced to watch my life burn down, I never would have rebuilt it the way I had. I never would have found the strength I didn't know I had. I never would have understood what real peace feels like. Pain changes you. Loss rebuilds you. But only if you let it. I thought about Claire sleeping in her car somewhere, chasing dreams that turned into nightmares. I thought about the years ahead of her, not the life of luxury she had pictured, but a long road of regrets and consequences she could never outrun. And I wished her well. Not because I wanted her back. Not because I was still tangled up in anger or sadness. But because forgiving her, truly forgiving her, was the last weight I needed to lift off my own shoulders. I finished my coffee. Washed the cup. Turned out the lights. And when I climbed into bed that night, the sheets clean and cool against my skin, I slept. Deep. Dreamless. At peace. The next morning, the sun came up just like it always did. But it felt different. Brighter. Full of possibilities instead of old ghosts. I made a list, not a survival list like the ones I scribbled in panic after she disappeared, but a real one. A dream list. Travel somewhere new. Start a new hobby. Meet new people, real people. Build a future on my terms. No shadows. No lies. No shrinking myself to fit someone else's life. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. I was thriving. And best of all, it was all mine. Later that week, I adopted a dog from the local shelter. Big Goofy, a mutt with more energy than sense. I named him Chance. Because that's what life had given me. A second chance. And this time I wasn't wasting it. Claire had walked away thinking she had destroyed me. Thinking she had the final word. But what she didn't realize, what she would never understand, was that by leaving, she had set me free. Truly free. And that was the kind of victory that didn't need shouting about. Didn't need flashing lights or revenge plots or dramatic confrontations. It was the quiet, steady, unstoppable kind. The kind you feel deep in your bones every single day you wake up and realize. You survived. You grew. You won. The funny thing about life after betrayal is that eventually, the pain becomes just another part of the story. A chapter you lived through. A scar that stopped hurting. A reminder but not a prison. Months passed after Claire showed up on my doorstep. Seasons changed. Leaves turned gold and red, then fell. The world kept spinning just like it always does. And so did I. The house grew more like home every day. The walls I painted. The floors I fixed. The memories I created. No longer haunted by what used to be. No longer defined by what was lost. Chance, my dog, became my shadow. Always ready to run down the street after squirrels, always thumping his tail against the door when I came home. A small, simple kind of loyalty that healed places inside me I didn't even know were broken. I started traveling. Nothing fancy at first. A weekend here. A road trip there. Places I always said I wanted to visit but never made the time for when my world revolved around someone else's needs. One night I found myself camping under a sky so thick with stars it looked fake. I lay there by the fire, Chance curled up at my side, and realized something powerful. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for her. Not for answers. Not even for forgiveness. I had given all of that to myself. And there was a freedom in that so deep and pure, I almost laughed out loud into the night. Claire was somewhere out there, probably still trying to stitch together the life she had torn apart. Or maybe not. Maybe she had given up entirely. Maybe she was sitting in some dusty motel room, wondering when the magic would come back. But that wasn't my story anymore. I wasn't a side character in her drama. I was the author of my own life now. Every page, every chapter written by my hand alone. I thought about the man I had been when I first got that goodbye text, desperate, broken, lost. I barely recognized him now. Because every painful moment had been shaping me, carving me into someone stronger. Someone wiser. Someone who knew that surviving isn't enough. You have to thrive. You have to choose happiness, even when it feels easier to stay angry. You have to build the life you deserve, not the one you were left with. And I had done it. Not because I wanted to prove anything to her. Not even because I wanted to prove anything to myself. But because once you taste real freedom, the kind that comes from knowing you can't be broken by someone else's choices, you'll never settle for less again. The divorce finalized a few months after she came back. It was clean. Quick. Painless considering everything. I signed the papers without hesitation. Walked out of the courthouse lighter than I'd ever felt in my life. No bitterness. No sadness. No last look over my shoulder. Just forward. Always forward. These days when people ask me about my past, I don't flinch. I don't hide the truth. I tell them, yeah, I lost everything once, but I found something better. Because the truth is, losing her wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was the best. It stripped away the lies. It burned down the fake future we were pretending to build. It forced me to stand on my own, to grow into someone I actually respect when I look in the mirror. And that's a gift no one can ever take away. Not even her. So here I am. A man who knows what real strength looks like. A man who knows that being alone isn't the worst thing being with the wrong person is. A man who doesn't wait for life to hand him happiness anymore, he creates it. Every day, every step, every breath. And as for Claire, I hope she finds her own kind of peace someday. I really do. But her story ended in my life a long time ago. And my story, it's just getting started.